Hello and good afternoon on a lovely Tuesday. We would like to welcome you to today's GovMates Institute. Today's topic is virtual first, business development in a post-COVID world. I am Meg Kearns. I am the marketing lead for GovMates and the GovMates Institute, and we are very happy to have you here with us today. Just as you're getting on and everyone is getting started, make sure you familiarize yourself with the process itself. You should see a Q&A section. There's also a chat section. We encourage you to use both of those. We'll go over a lot more of this information as well as we move forward. But if you'd like to drop where you're joining us from today into that chat, just to make sure that we can all see you, that would be fantastic. So we will get started in just a moment where we will introduce everybody who is part of our group today, as well as kind of getting into a lot of the really great content that you will be able to take action on right away. I do see several people from the Virginia area, so welcome. Most of us are in Virginia as well, or the surrounding area, so Maryland as well, so welcome, welcome. Hopefully you can hear all of us, and we will move on to some participation notes. So best ways to participate today. Make sure you remove some of those distractions. So close down your email. I know it's difficult. It's, you know, a Tuesday afternoon, but try and close down those unnecessary browser windows. Silence your phone so you're not getting text messages and, you know, phone calls right now, because you're going to want to know what the information is that we're sharing with you today. If you have headphones because you're out in the office or something like that, go ahead and pop those in so you can hear us better. You should not be able to accidentally unmute yourself, but technology is what it is. So just make sure you keep your microphone on mute if possible. Be active in that chat. There are so many of you who are participating with us already. Good afternoon. We've got Arlington, we've got Ohio, we've got Illinois, we've got Oregon, we've got New York, we've got so many people. So we're very happy to have you here. Make sure you are posting those questions that you have both in the chat and in the Q&A. We will get to as many of them as we can today. So I am going to step back for a moment and introduce to you Stephanie Alexander, the co-founder of GovMates, who is going to be your fabulous moderator today, and let her take it from here. Stephanie.
Thank you, Meg. Welcome, everyone. Hello, GovMate Nation. How are we? Zoomed out, tired, and gained 15 COVID pounds. Or is that me? I'm just asking for a friend. Anyway, as you guys know, we have moved to virtual just like the rest of the world. And so we appreciate you guys participating in yet another webinar and yet another Zoom call. Our goal is to give you as much information in as quick amount of time as possible, and to do it with a little bit of levity and a little bit of just no nonsense, get me through and get me what I need to know. Everything you've come to expect from GovMates Institutes. We're excited because we are virtual, and therefore we can include way more of our GovMates than our normal DC location. So we're excited to see everybody participating. As Meg mentioned, please put your phone, your information, your questions, anything like that in the chat box, and we are going to try and get to as many questions as we possibly can. So my job is to get these experts to tell us everything we want to know as easily as fast as possible, and to keep us moving. Hopefully we're going to keep you from multitasking too much. That's my real job. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to introduce each of our experts, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves and tell us what makes them an expert in their field. So let's start with Kim Pack.
Hi.
Tell us about yourself.
All right. Well, hi, I'm Kim Pack, and I am a managing director here at Wolf Den Associates. I lead our strategy and management consulting practice. But what makes me an expert in this is I have 30 years of federal experience, and half of those were specifically in business development, beating the street, and running an organization of about 25 business developers across civilian, healthcare, and state and local.
So 30 years in GovCon is in dog years, approximately 150, 200 years of experience. I think that's how that translates.
Yes, and that's how I feel.
Counts for more.
Yeah, I certainly feel that old, but I don't do math in public. And so, you know, however old it is.
All right, next, without further ado, Nate Kreoger. Who are you and what makes you an expert in your field?
Well, thank you for joining us today. So, I am a director of strategy and management here at Wolf Den Associates, where I really focus on those sort of go-to-government strategies. So more specifically, like what are the strategic actions that industry needs to take to really grow and expand in the federal market. I joined Wolfden in February of 2020, actually from the Trump White House, where I served as a political appointee for the past 3.5 years. Prior to that, though, I spent 10 years at GSA as both a contracting officer and also an acquisition project manager. Probably from offices that you've heard of, GSA's FedSim, the Federal Strategic Sourcing Initiative. I mean, the list could go on and on, but I think really what makes me an expert is that I come to Wolfden having both the government side, or knowing the government side, but also now knowing the private industry side. So really being able to sort of bridge the gap between the two.
Perfect. So you are deliberately in the middle, at least on my Zoom call, so you can bridge the gap. And last, without further ado, Alex Rouse, who are you and what makes you an expert in your field? Moving to the other
Hi,
side.
can you all hear me?
Absolutely.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Well, I'm Alex Rouse. I'm at GSA. I'm in the portfolio of professional services and human capital. My latest role is serving as chief of staff, but before I took on this position, I was responsible for the multiple award schedules program for professional services, as well as the OASIS contracts. And I built up the market share for OASIS from 3 billion to over 20 billion. I've worked a lot with industry, communicated a lot with industry. Before that, I served as the director for our customer accounts and stakeholder engagement in the National Capital Region. I was the director there. And then I also worked on several federal strategic sourcing initiatives, built 2 and oversaw 5 of them. Actually, once upon a time, my paths crossed with Nate when he was at GSA. And so then that, I guess, would qualify me as a subject matter expert.
I'd say so, without a doubt. And for those of us participating, if you're an OASIS if you're an OASIS person, please feel free to shout out on give some OASIS love. Lots of business running through that vehicle. So thank you.
Definitely.
Well, as we get ready to go, I want to set the stage. And by that, I mean, I'm going to make Kim do all the work, and I'm going to look smart by asking the smart questions, because you could care less what I think. All right, Kim, given we've established that you have 150, 200 years in GovCon years, I think, managing a bajillion BD people in multiple offices, tell us 2020. Again, 2020. That's pretty much my excuse for everything. What are we doing? What's going on? Set the stage for us. Give us kind of like where we stand from a business development perspective in the federal contracting industry. Hit us with your brilliance.
Okay, well, sure. I'm happy to set the stage for 2020. And if we could have a do-over, I would be the first to raise my hand for a do-over. But in March, like everyone else, we walked into the office March 16th. It was a Monday. And we very quickly, by lunchtime, sent everyone home and made sure that they took everything they needed to be successful working from home. And so it was quickly, within 3 to 4 hours, that our lives changed. And with that change, we had to figure out, how do we work in this new normal? And I like to say we started day 1 in March, but it has been an iterative process, and we've had to learn as we've gone, because that not everything worked. And so today we wanted to bring you some of our best practices on how to really do business development in a world where we can't walk the halls anymore. And that's an interesting play. Most of us loved being out with our customers and facing them and doing a lot with them, with coffees and happy hours and all of those things. And we've had to reset the stage. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Stephanie, do you want me to go into more detail, or do you want to move forward and we'll go over everything we're looking at?
I feel like no one wants to relive 2020 ever. And we're all by now, hopefully you've all made sourdough bread, you have enough toilet paper, and we've moved on. So I think we know where we are. We don't know what tomorrow brings, that's for sure. But as we get focused here at the end of 4th quarter of government fiscal year, we're going into our next budgeting, we got a lot going on from an industry perspective. Why don't you start, essentially, let's move to the next phase. What effect has it had on BD? Where are we headed? What does that look like for you?
Sure. Do you want me to start with that?
Sure. Whatever makes sense for you.
Okay.
And then pepper in some questions.
What I'd like to say is the effect has been really traumatic, and I mean that wholeheartedly, and I know a lot of folks mean that as well. And so when I think about it being traumatic, one of the things we did early on is we said, hey, give yourselves a break. It's okay if you can't get in touch with your customer. Take this time to reset your strategy. Look at what you're doing. Reset your call plan. How are you going to get there? Think through what marketing looks like. That was back in March and April. Now what I'm telling you is, look, full steam ahead. This isn't changing. We got to move forward. There's no time to lag now. You've got to move forward. And so when we say that and we start to move forward, the first thing we talk about is, please, whatever you do, don't forget the fundamentals. You still have to do the fundamentals. You still have to go in with a message. You still have to work for the follow-up. Even if it's not in person, you still got to get that follow-up. You want to let the customers talk. Active listening with a piece of glass in front of you isn't always easy. We tend to want to talk over each other all the time. But the fact is you got to active listen. You got to know why you, not, and when I say why you, why us, why the company. You got to know that better than you know you as an individual. It's important. It's part of your brand, and it may be the only time that you can really get that message in. And last but not least, you want to have as much information as you can going into these meetings, because research is vital here, and you still have to do your legwork. So don't forget those fundamentals in this time and age right now. It's very, very important. Nate, I'm going to turn it over to you because I know you also have some things that you might want to add here.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. I mean, I think you really touched on, you really touched on the core fundamentals, right? But I think even deeper than that is really the, not social distancing from social media is probably one that I think is really important. I mean, right now we are so inundated with so much noise, right? There's so much noise out there. And I would imagine as we get closer to the end of Q4, the closer to sort of election season, that's really going to sort of increase in volume. And I think it's really easy to sort of turn your social media off. But right now is really the time to really maximize your position on social media. I think it's really everybody's responsibility within the organization to sort of take a deep look at what they're sort of posting, liking, sharing on social media, and make sure that it really does align with your organization's message. And that's sort of why us.
Nate, one of the questions just on the question box is, what engagement strategies do you recommend now that we're constrained by a lack of face-to-face meetings? And I think what I'm hearing is social media.
Yeah, I think social media is a really great tool, depending on how you use it. I mean, and in my experience in government, the GovCon industry sometimes uses the wrong social media tools to connect with you to get information. But I think in general, when we talk about what engagement strategies you can really look for, I think a lot of us are attending a lot of panels right now. We're attending a lot of trainings. And I think really thinking strategically about which one of those you attend, which ones will provide the most value, and sort of spreading your position, your awareness, your sort of offering across all of these different sort of panels is really valuable. And that comes back to cutting through the noise, right? Your LinkedIn is filled with 100 posts a day. And you really need to think strategically about what you can engage in to really support your strategy.
So can I piggyback on that? Because, go ahead, Alex. I'll fill in.
That's okay. I think that both of you brought up really valid points about the fundamentals and leveraging social media. I think Nate hit the nail on the head with being strategic about what you're looking at. You want to make sure you're pursuing opportunities that really fit the core competencies of your business. And people are posting on things like LinkedIn. The government is. We're leveraging it more than ever now because we have the same constraints. We can't just go out and meet with industry like we used to anymore either. I think attending industry days is critical because you'll learn who the players are. If you have a solution, to put together a white paper and send it to these contracting officers. A lot of times they're looking for information on how to solve problems. You may have these resources available to you, and the contracting officers just don't. Program people tend to be a little more savvy with the market research, but contracting officers, not as much, especially when you have to use new ways of leveraging technology and seeing what's out there. Making calls or sending emails that talk about your business or that you want a meeting, they're probably not going to respond to because they're slammed right now. Contracting has not slowed down at all. My recommendation is to really look at what a problem is with a given agency and to highlight how your company or how your business can help and what ways, and then request a meeting. That would be my advice to folks who are trying to capture business, build business, and you would be more successful in actually getting the attentions of the contracting officers and the program managers because you're helping them solve what they're tasked with.
Before we move on, Stephanie, one of the things I want to make sure that people realize, and as we talk about strategies, engagement strategies, social media is one of the support systems to leverage. You're not really using it as a strategy from engagement except to support getting in front of that customer. And so some of the engagement strategies that we really want to talk about is email, video conferencing, right? Then all the extra things that you can do within an event. So if they have the ad hoc networking. So those are the things that we talk about from an engagement strategy. One of the things that I want to be really clear about is if you go and ask for a video chat with somebody, the likelihood of them saying yes is just like, video chat, great. What do I have to know? Good Lord, what do you use? And can I use it? But the fact is, when I work with GSA, and of course, Alex is one of my favorites there, but when I work with GSA, a lot of times I'll throw something over to someone and say, hey, let's have a Greenberry's virtual coffee hour, or half an hour. And I make it very personal, and that the way we used to do business, right? Greenberry's is right down in that building. And we used to meet people there all the time. And so now, instead of just saying, hey, could you meet me for coffee? Well, what I do know is from 9 to 5, they're on calls all day long. Just ask for Alex. They're constantly on back-to-back calls about COVID, about other initiatives, things that are happening. And so what I do is I say, hey, if you wouldn't mind, could we do an 8 to 8:30 Greenberry's chat? Let's get some virtual coffee in here and, talk for a few minutes. And just making it more personable and making it more flexible to work outside of the times that they're going to have to be on these other calls really gives them the ability to say yes in some cases. We're trying to open it up to where we want them to say yes and not to where we know they have to say no.
No, that makes sense. Alex, do you have a response to that? Do you agree with Kim's advice?
I agree with that. I agree with what Kim said wholeheartedly, because right now we are pretty much in meetings the entire day, and a lot of it is internal. Right now, this time of year, we're doing our strategic planning. We're trying to figure out how to reach customers. We're working with our customer accounts and stakeholder engagement folks who have boots on the ground with different agencies throughout the country. So, seeing a familiar face from industry is a welcomed change in the routine. I think how Kim posed it, try to make it as normal as it used to be, but under the virtual umbrella. It allows for more fun, and just seeing a different person is wonderful, to be honest. And you don't want to let your old relationships slide just because we're all in our own individual plastic bubbles now. You took the time to build these relationships. It's really important to maintain them because, like I said, work is still happening, and people are dogged with a lot of different things. You don't want to be forgotten. So, taking the friendly approach, hey, let's have a virtual, whatever. Keep it short, keep it sweet. I probably wouldn't go over 30 minutes when you're asking for the meeting, just because anything longer will seem daunting. Or even just a quick check-in. How are you doing? How can we help you? Hey, we've got these new offerings. just maintaining the existing relationships is critical too.
No. So follow-up question to that, Alex, is okay. So I can see you taking a virtual coffee or whatever from an existing person that you already know, right? So that works for, I think the first takeaway here is keep and maintain those relationships and get in there, right? But what about people who are trying to break into new areas? So people that you have never heard of, people that you're like, yet another email, yet another request. What do you want from me?
Sure.
What are some things that get your attention or that may work successfully for you? Or what are some things absolutely not to do? What will send you off?
Sending the standard email, hi, I'm so-and-so. I'd like to talk to you about what my company can do. We have contract on professional services in IT. I get a lot of requests for the IT schedules, and hey, IT is great, and we partner with them a lot, but that's not my bailiwick.
Yeah.
So and so it's just kind of like, well, yeah. So you really need to know who you're reaching out to, and again, people are about the what's in it for me. So when you think about the type of energy that you spend on building your brand within your own company, your own personal brand, think about that as it extends to email. Yes, it's kind of behind the scenes, but you really want to have your personality, putting your best foot forward, probably in the first 2 or 3 sentences. Really getting it to the heart of what's in it for the reader is so critical, because if they open it, the subject line's got to be a catcher. I can help you solve your X problem. This is how we can help you with X, and then expand on it in high level, and then break it down a little bit further, and then suggest the meeting. You really need to develop the hook that's going to catch them visually. And I think that's probably one of the strongest things that I could recommend at this point. People nowadays, they screen their phone calls. Calling probably won't be as meaningful unless if you have that existing relationship first. And, we still have different avenues. We still have different industry days and whatnot, and just really leveraging particularly for small businesses. The SBA is still out there. Every agency still has their their office of small disadvantaged business utilization. Contact those folks. We still have acquisition.gov that talks about all the different acquisitions that are coming up within government. I mean, really doing that market research and then providing the information about your best capabilities and how it can solve the government problem that's being addressed, critical.
So just to make sure I understand, get you with the hook on the subject line, solve a problem that your agency actually has and maybe even has money for, would be preferred. Do not offer the white paper. Yeah. Don't offer the white paper immediately because no one's going to read it, but be prepared to have a white paper to solve the solution. When does that come into play? Yeah. After the initial meeting?
I would say if they reach out to you and they agree to the meeting, then be prepared. Don't talk about capabilities. Talk about what makes your company better than everybody else. What makes your company the best one to help them with their requirement? Why are you the best one to help with this requirement? And then see where, and then just follow the conversation as it goes. Developing white papers takes a lot of time and it's expensive. So, you really want to just be well-versed in your talking points with the company's core capabilities and have the ability to say, this is how my core capabilities apply to this problem specifically, and this is why you should use us. And then set up the meeting for the virtual meeting, and then see where it takes you. I think that most folks will have better luck with that, and because it's specific, it gets to the point, it's not open-ended, and it's just not like, oh, we're this company, we're great. How are you? Great. How does this help me?
Okay.
That's what folks want. What's in it for me?
Makes sense. So let me stop us right here, just because I'm looking at the time. It is 1:55. Meg, if you are around, hopefully you are.
I am. I'm right here. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Perfect. So hopefully you can see my screen. And if you have been part of a GovMates Institute before, you know that we're big on our giveaways. We like to reward you for paying attention, and we like to reward you for just kind of being here with us. So for the first giveaway, we're going to ask you to put your answer into the chat box, which is our question, the answer to our question: whatever you do, what is the one thing you should never forget? What do you think is the one thing you should never forget when it comes to interacting virtually with the people that you're trying to connect with? So go ahead, put your answer in the chat. I will take a look at those, and we will randomly choose somebody who's going to win our first giveaway. And we have a couple of questions that I think we can speak to as we're compiling these answers. Nathan, somebody had asked, when you say we use the wrong social media tools, is there an example of the wrong one, or is it more of the way that we're using them that's incorrect?
Ooh, good question.
I definitely think, yeah, that's a great question. So I found that when I was a contracting officer, I received a lot of messages, a lot of capability statements, white papers, even when I was at the White House, and not specifically in a contracting role, that would come in all sorts of different ways. And I think there is an appropriate channel to access government and sort of some inappropriate channels. An example of an inappropriate channel would be Instagram, as an example. If somebody's going out and finding you on Instagram and connecting with you there because they can't reach you through other resources, it really sets sort of it affects your reputation, right? And reputation is everything. And so that would be an example of somewhere where you would not want to go. Also, just sort of understanding that while, you know, we spoke about LinkedIn earlier, while LinkedIn is certainly a tool and a resource to get information or to share information about your company, it isn't necessarily the best resource to reach out to, you know, government experts as sort of your first stopping point. And so that's sort of what I was indicating as a, you know, in terms of what is and is not an appropriate channel.
No, that's great. That's really good information. And I'm going to actually pop it over to Kim to give us the correct answer. There have been a lot of really good answers in the chat, so I applaud you all for paying attention. But Kim, what is the answer of the one thing that we should never forget?
The one thing that you should never forget are the fundamentals. Never forget the fundamentals. And while you guys really did break down a lot of things that you want to think about, the fundamentals are the most important piece to this, because the avenue, the platform has changed, but business development has not. So don't forget those fundamentals.
Perfect. And our winner for the first giveaway is, and I may butcher the name, I apologize in advance, Amy Bladsole. You would be the winner for our first giveaway. Congratulations to you, and we will be in touch with you to make sure that you get your first prize. So congratulations. I also really appreciate the person who said order coffee for these virtual chats. Don't forget that. There have been some really, really great answers here. So Amy, we will be in touch with you, but Stephanie, I'm going to swap it back over to you.
Thank you. Thank you all for participating. We love a good answer, and we love a snarky answer too. So whoever put in about regular, not decaf, amen. All right. So let's shift some focus. I think we've got some really good nuggets of information for people. Let's, Kim, I'm going back over to you, but I really want to kind of recast where we're headed in the sense of, what are some critical changes that you think companies need to make to be successful? Because I mean, that's what we're looking for, right? Like, so we've talked to Alex, we've got a little bit of background on how to, you know, don't Instagram. People, if you're Instagramming, we got bigger problems. That's my first question. Secondly, don't Instagram Alex. And, you know, we've talked about the happy hours, we've talked about the social media, we've talked about that, but give us, you had mentioned, go back to the fundamentals, get us set in the right place.
Yeah, so now that we've established that we have a new platform, there are some fundamentals you must take to actually be successful with a platform. The first one is from now until evermore, take a virtual first approach no matter what. Even if we go back to physical, take a virtual first approach no matter what. This is not changing. They're still going to be on LinkedIn, and they're still going to be looking at your social media, so you need to do that. So there are a few things that you should do immediately. One thing is that you should first look at your LinkedIn. It is the one place that most federal folks will go to look at you before you come in to talk to them. So make sure your LinkedIn is up to date. Make sure you don't have a generic LinkedIn background. Make sure that you are showing who you are and what you're doing. Your about statement, your about summary should be updated. It should be current. If you haven't updated it, you should. And then make sure that your stuff underneath of that for experience really speaks to you. Those are things that you can fix immediately. And when you want to go in and they say, so tell me about yourself, if they can't find what you're telling them, that's a disservice to you and your organization. Make sure that your LinkedIn is connected to your company. Make sure your company has a good LinkedIn page. All of those things matter right now. That's a virtual first approach. Second thing is that you as a business developer should know the platforms better than anyone. And I will tell you, it's hard to know everything that's out there. I get it. But know the three, right? Make sure you know Teams, make sure you know Zoom, and make sure that you know one of the others, whether it's Google. I know GSA uses a lot of the Google platforms. Make sure you know Google if that's what your agency is using. Make sure you understand the differences when you have to go in and use something else very specific like the Amazon product. There's a ton of them out there, but make sure you do have at least 3 under your belt. And when somebody says, oh my gosh, I wish I could present, you say, oh, on the left-hand side, you'll see 3 dots. Here's what I want you to do with those 3 dots. Here's how you present. Those are easy things that you guys can do. Be the expert on the phone on your platform. Number 1, you're building credibility immediately in your virtual first approach. So those are a couple of things. I'll stop there because I know Nate probably has a few he'd like to share as well.
All right, Nate.
Yeah, absolutely. And this kind of goes back to, Kim, sort of what you were talking about before with every opportunity is really a chance to connect, right? So you really need to focus on collaborating where there is opportunity. So a great example of this is we had a training course that Wolf Den provided last Thursday. And, you know, pretty much every single attendee that was there, the minute they got in, they wrote in the chat box sort of who they were, their contact information, just sort of like a quick blurb. And what that really does is it sort of sets the stage for you to be able to sort of see who else is in the training. And it really opens the door for a follow-up conversation. So when you're trying to figure out, like, how do I sort of introduce myself to people that I don't really already know, this sort of provides you with that sort of catalyst to sort of have that conversation following the training, right? So it's just really noticing and sort of strategically thinking about everything that you engage in. How do you connect? How do you walk away with additional connection and really expand that network? Another one that we talked about earlier is mastering that strategic follow-up, right? And this kind of goes back to what I was talking about before. Mastering the strategic follow-up is incredibly important. You can do this in a multitude of ways. So you can either use the agenda for the meeting, you know, to sort of set the stage and include action items and write about them afterwards. You can also try to really engage in active listening and sort of listen for what it is that people are stating that they need, or think about what it is that they might want to know following the particular meeting. And then look up an article, look up a piece of material that you can then send to them afterwards and say, I was listening to what you said about X, Y, and Z, and I think this article really speaks to that. And then sort of use that to set the stage to have a follow-on meeting.
Alex,
Here. I think, Nathan, you covered it beautifully.
How would that appeal to you or not appeal to you? What would be your reaction?
Absolutely. So many folks do not follow up. So many do not follow up. And taking that time just to find an article, that would just be golden. And even if the article doesn't necessarily work for me, I would be more likely to call Nate back because he took the time to help me. And it really solidifies the relationship. The follow-up, it demonstrates that you were listening. It demonstrates that you have a genuine interest and that, you know, you're not out there for the numbers. It really, it establishes the personal connection with the person you want to build a relationship with. A follow-up rarely happens, or it's just, yeah, I mean, or it's just when you do get follow-up, you said you were going to send me X, Y, and Z. So make sure you send it. Not good. But when you do that extra outreach, which would probably only take you 30 seconds for the article, that's golden. That would really resonate, I think, with a lot of people who are just bogged down and just kind of like, industry. I don't want to talk to them. But industry actually trying to help, it's worth its weight in gold. Nate, that was brilliant.
Hey, Stephanie, can I add one thing in here? Because I think it's really important that BD is not an individual sport. Everybody's job is to do business development in one way or another. And one of the things that you guys should all take back to your executives is the buy-in for a virtual first approach. And this is important because you need support. You need someone who is updating social media. You need someone who is savvy with it. Saturating people with nonsense is not going to win you credibility across your federal government customers. And so you need someone who's savvy about how to do it. Auto sale in social media is annoying. I'm going to tell you right up front, it's annoying. You're putting out so much because it's automatic that people are going to get too saturated, and they're going to get a real affinity to not look at your stuff. So you want to be really very careful with that. One of the things you want your folks to really think about is, Alex talked about white papers. They're expensive and they take quite a bit of time. That's okay. You need a few of those. Those are important, and those are great strategic follow-ups. But the thing that you want is a hook. She talked about the hook in the email. Emails are hard to get a call back on, or even an email back. But the hook is, remember, BDers are compelling storytellers. And so starting an email with, just imagine professional services looking like ... professional services being able to do blah, 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 blah. I've just set a stage for Alex. And guess what I want to follow up with? I want to follow up with a small 20-second to 30-second video that next to it says 30-second view, 20-second view. She knows exactly how long it's going to take to go through that, or 30-second read. And when you set the stage and you give her something that she wants to talk about, if she likes what she sees from that company, you're going to get an email back. And so you set the stage with something small, a snippet, a use case, something little, and then you get the meeting, you follow up strategically with either a white paper or an article or something that now continues the conversation even further. And so you send that off, and then the next week you come back, or 3 days later, and you come back and said, hey, I hope you had time to look at this. Would you like to talk about it further? I'd love to get back on your calendar in the next couple of weeks. The one thing I saw someone say in there is to continue to press, continue to press, continue to press. There is a fine line. You don't want to continue to press. You want to be persistent and not annoying. So you've got to be very careful of how you're doing that and having a reason to follow up. That's where you're going to get the bite from your government customer. If you just continue to push and push and push and push with nothing coming out of that, you need to be very careful. I also saw in the comments about taking in a pre-done capabilities brief. Guess what? That's not tailored to this customer, and that's not going to win them, mind share from you, because that's one thing that everybody's going to get from you. Capability briefs, if they're not specific and not what they're looking for, they're going to turn them off. And the minute you walk out the door, if you were in person, they're going to throw it in the trash. If you email it, they're not going to open it. So you've got to be very careful to tell that compelling story. And that means you know your customer and you understand proximity to her challenges and where she wants to go.
Well, I think that goes directly to what Alex originally said, is what problem of mine are you trying to sell? What's in it or solve? What's in it for me? Alex, 2 quick follow-up questions, and then we're going to go to Meg for yet another giveaway. First question was, would you watch a video? If someone sent you just a 20, as Kim alluded to, a 30-second video, is that something that would be of interest to you? Because I think our industry generally hasn't done that very often.
No, I actually found that kind of intriguing. And I think having the amount of time, or the duration rather, of the video on there is important. Yes, I probably would watch a 20-second video. I probably wouldn't go much over a minute, to be honest. I'm not going to look at a 5-minute video. Short and sweet.
Yeah, no, teenagers aren't going over, nobody's going over a minute these days, right? So
yeah. And then the snippet, and what's cool about the video, depending on what the quality of the information that's in it, is very easy to forward to other people. and have them take a look at it too, you know, because watching is a lot quicker, more meaningful for information absorption than reading.
Yeah. Somebody did point out in the comment section, I think this is a good concern, is the problem with security, right? So getting videos into you where you can actually see it versus having it go through security.
Yeah, DoD will probably be a huge problem. I don't know how that would work with DoD because they have very strict firewalls. GSA, we definitely have our firewalls, but I think we would be able to get, getting videos probably would not be as difficult. To be fair, I've never gotten a video from industry, so I don't know how much of an issue that would be. But that's interesting. I'd be willing to ask the CIO about it and just be like, hey, I got a question.
Yeah, and there's an easy way around that. We run into this quite often, and there are agencies that are open, especially if you're on the same email platform that they are and some other things. So there's some ways around that. But the real easy way to do is give them the link, tell them it's 20-second, let them click on the link and go in. Even if it's blocked, they can copy and paste it in and watch it. So there are different ways of doing it and working through that.
No, that's a great.
And I think that I was going to say, I think this really speaks back to the point that we were making earlier, which is really becoming that expert in technology and really understanding your customer and sort of what the technological capabilities are that they can access within their particular agency. So like at the EOP, for an example, I had a number of potential contractors that would actually put their video up on YouTube. Now, I could not watch the video in a specific message, but I could certainly go out and access YouTube and then watch it on there, right? And so it's very much the job, in my opinion, of the BDR to really understand the agency that they're going after and the tools and resources that they have at their hands to actually watch what you send them.
No, that's a great point. All right, Meg, I'm getting ready. I'm teeing you up, but I've got one last question for Alex. Alex, you had mentioned, we had talked about follow-up and then follow-up and then follow-up. Like, let's not be stalkers. Just curious if you had an opinion on when do we cross the line? When does industry become a stalker to you? Like, is it endless follow-ups without, just kind of.
Yes, Alex. When do we become that stalker?
when do we?
Well, if your name is Kim Pack. I would say if folks aren't going to respond to you by your second follow-up, they're probably not going to respond.
Okay, so initial one and then 2 follow-ups. Is that what you're saying, or initial 1 and 1 follow-up?
Yeah, 1 to 2 follow-ups. Yes, okay. I would have the initial outreach, and depending, and then follow up, maybe 2 follow-ups after that. If you have a meeting with them, I think following the advice of Nate, thanking them for their time. Here's an article that might help you. If you have any questions, let me know. And then following up about a week or so later, my guess is that company would still be on the government's mind. And then just see if there's anything else to talk about or if they've made any traction, and then just see if you can get some sort of a high-level timeline from the person you met with, because the government is also known a lot for hurry up and waiting. Funding is an issue, resource, people resource is an issue, and then just other projects. And this time in the political cycle, we're gearing up for musical chairs, because even if the administration doesn't change, a lot of people will step out for the next 4 years, or we could have a whole new rote of people coming in. So there's that to contend with too. And then really learning what the presidential management agendas are about is always a good thing to research, because then you're going to know what the agencies are going to be tasked with. GSA does a lot of work on behalf of OMB, for example. So with the administration, or when there's big things that you see in the news, check the presidential management agenda. That'll help guide you to where future projects could lie. I kind of took a 180 there. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. So the first part is, if you're not responding to industry, they're just not that into you. So, find someone else to consider. And then the second being follow the money, right? Follow the agenda.
Always research the budget, follow the money, follow the presidential management agenda. Yeah.
Okay, Meg, over to you for our second giveaway, please.
Perfect. I hope everyone is taking notes, because there's so much information that's been shared already today that's very, very valuable. Today's second giveaway question is, what does every connection point hold? Remember to stick that answer in the chat. And I know I specifically heard Nate mention it, so you have heard the answer to this. So what every connection point holds when it comes to you looking for new opportunities online in a new virtual space. There is one question that was on here that I'm not sure we'll get to, but I want to go ahead and ask it while you're answering this in the chat. When introducing your company to a new client, is it appropriate to mention teaming strategy to gain attention, especially if the teaming answers some of the government's issues? Is there a line there? Is there a fine line there where it's okay to potentially say that, or is that too much of a salesy ad?
Meg, are you asking us?
I am asking you guys, because I think you would probably, I think Kim, you might be able to throw this one in there. Is it actually appropriate to throw that in as part of your go-to when you're trying to get new introductions?
Yeah, so I will tell you the answer that nobody wants to hear. It depends. But let me tell you what I mean by it depends. It depends on where you are in the life cycle of an opportunity. If you are far enough down that teaming is going to really be your discriminator and the uniqueness of what you're bringing, then it is appropriate. I'd like them to understand a little more about you as a prime way before that. But again, it really depends on the timing. If it's your first meeting with them and the opportunity is still being shaped, the idea is to shape it to work for you specifically as a prime, and you wouldn't necessarily want to bring in teaming until you know more about the requirements. So really it depends on the life cycle, where it is in the life cycle, and then it depends on if you have other discriminators that you want to push forward, or if that truly is your discriminator.
Perfect.
I think that's good advice, Kim. I would also say there's a lot out there about teaming, joint ventures and whatnot, but you, as the prime, you really want to make sure you establish the confidence with the agency you're working with. If you come in and it's one of your first meetings and it's just, and you start talking about other companies that can do the work that you're teamed with or partnered with or whatever, it doesn't bring forward a strong level of confidence for your specific company. I would say that. Now, as Kim said, down the road, with as you learn what the specific requirement is and that type of thing, then it would be more appropriate. But I would say early on, I would not make that a one of your key highlights. The question is asked, by all means answer it, but I wouldn't make that one of your going in positions early on.
Thank you. Now, since we've had a couple minutes to go ahead and answer the giveaway, Kim, I am going to ask you for the correct answer here. What does every connection point hold?
Every connection point holds a prospect of business.
A prospect of business. So there are opportunities in every one we get to talk to, which means that our winner for giveaway 2 is Andrea Walter from IMC. So we will go ahead and make sure that Andrea, however you want us to pronounce your name, that we get a hold of you, and congratulations on winning giveaway 2. Stephanie, I'm going to pass it back over to you. I know we have a few more minutes left and there's a lot for us to chat about.
Yes, so we have 10 more minutes left. So if you have any questions, I'd ask all of our attendees to throw them in the chat room as quickly as possible, and we will try to get to as many as possible. I'm going to open it up actually to all of you and go a little off script in the sense of what is an important message that everyone needs to hear that we haven't already covered? We've talked about fundamentals. We've talked about active listening. We've talked about research. We've talked about solving an actual problem. We've talked about, you know, the follow-up perspective and being useful. We've talked about how not to be a stalker and don't Instagram. What else is important? What else should our audience know? What, you guys have been kind of zooming through the questions yourselves. Is there anything else that you feel like is important?
Yeah, I'll
Alex,
start.
I feel like you got something.
I'll start because, and I can answer a couple of questions with it because it's the same question. Don't forget about your warm handshakes. Don't forget about trying to get to somebody that's not a cold call. I'm seeing over here that I email and I call and I never get an answer back. It's harder for them to say no when somebody is referring you, or you can use that name to open the door. So never, never forget about your warm handshakes. Find them. I mean, we are literally some kind of warm or hot handshake away from everybody in this industry. Play to someone's ego if you need that introduction. Play to them. Tell them that you're excited and what you can get from them and glean from them, and could they help you? All of that is fair game in the BD world. So make sure you never forget you have warm handshakes all over the place. Use those before you start doing cold calls because they're very hard to do and they're not very fulfilling.
It is 2 degrees of government contracting. We've all been frenemies. We've all been on teams. We've all worked for each other, and it's Kevin Bacon's around here somewhere, I'm sure. So Alex, what do you have? And then I do see a good question that I would like follow up from either Nate or Kim with regards to professional organizations, but I'm going to ask Alex, what is something that you feel like everyone in our audience needs to know as well?
So GSA is a unique agency because we start contracts or develop master contracts that agencies buy from. So we're in the mix and we're not in the mix. We also have, pretty much every portfolio has a business development person who is focused on the industry side as opposed to the customer side, and really building the relationship with that person can help make connections to customers. So I would like to throw that out there. And then again, just leveraging the OSBU offices for connections or even recommendations. And then I thought Kim's point about having another company facilitate a meeting or just kind of have a meet and greet, that's always a good thing as well, or even another customer. I think anytime that you can take advantage of just getting in front of someone who has information pipeline or access to an information pipeline, which is why I'm stressing the small business utilization offices, because they have pipeline information. Leverage that, and they can help you understand the process. Even if you're new, or if you don't have a contract with GSA, but it's something that you're considering, reach out to the directors of the contracting operations and ask for a meeting to see what's entailed with getting onto a schedule, for example, or really like, does my business fit in with these special item numbers that we have on schedule? Also, just really, taking advantage of your colleagues, the networking opportunities. A lot of these associations, while they don't have breakfasts anymore, they have virtual breakfasts. Or, the Coalition for Government Procurement is always talking about things that are hot in the world of government, and they have lots of virtual meetings where it talks about the different pain points. So, I mean, there's another way where you can learn about solving problems. And then just really be honest with yourself about what your company is really good at. And don't think, well, this could fit into our bailiwick, but if it doesn't, don't force a square peg in a round hole. Focus on what your expertise is. Focus on what you're best at.
Okay, great advice. Nate, over to you. Alex alluded to it a little bit, but I like this question. We had talked about this before. How do you leverage these professional organizations? How do you get in front of more people? Take it from there.
Sure, absolutely. So I will say, I think Kim probably is the most perfect resource to answer this question. But I really think when it comes to professional organization, I mean, obviously, again, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, which with, you know, attending panels or trainings and whatnot, pick the right ones, right? Pick the ones that can really, you know, not only lift you up professionally, but lift your organization up, right? You want to be best positioned when you sort of go into government. But in terms of how you use them, I mean, it's really important to stay connected to everybody who might be in your class, if you're in a Voyagers or whatever you happen to be, right? Don't lose those relationships because they become critical over time. You know what position somebody is in today. You don't know what position they're going to be in 5 years, right? And so you want to make sure that you follow their career journey at the same time as you sort of hope that they follow yours. And I think one of the important things to sort of tie together the professional organizations and everything that Alex and Kim just said is we so often focus on how do I get connected? How does my organization get connected? But don't forget to serve as a connector for others, right? Success is a shared goal. And so at the same time as you're trying to get connected, you know, do a good deed, one might say, and really help your colleagues become connected as well.
That's great advice. I love that. Especially, I tell people 2020 is a blood sport, so a little bit of kindness won't kill any of us, that's for sure. All right, we've got 4 minutes left, so I know that we've got to start wrapping it up. I want to give you guys a platform for at least 20, 30 seconds of kind of like key takeaway for you. Give us your last bit of genius insight that everyone can take away. And then I've got a little bit of a GovMates announcement at the end here. So Kim, you want to lead us off?
Sure. My real takeaway here is get creative in the way that you connect. Get creative. I'm seeing a lot of folks in the chat talk about, you know, linking into folks, and they're getting a lot more from that perspective. That's a great way to start. It's a great way to build a friendship, build anything from that. I'm asking people to speak on panels through LinkedIn because I'm getting them quicker from that perspective. But be creative. Do things outside of the box. This is not your traditional BD, and make sure that you're thinking from that perspective. Also, reach out to people. If somebody is speaking on a panel and you think they may be able to help you, reach out to that person to see what kind of help you might be able to get from them. Don't be shy about it. The only thing you can ever hear is no. And what big deal is that? So just make sure that you reach out. Most people want to help you. So that's what I take away from all of this.
Hopefully hitting on the kindness thing just a bit too. That's always good. All right, Alex or Nate, whoever wants to go next.
I think Nate and Kim said it well. I think I even alluded to it a little bit. I mean, really taking the time to make sure all facets of your outreach are cohesive, they're professional, and that you really come across as a subject matter expert. You cannot underestimate the power of the first impression. So be coming off as very knowledgeable, really working on your personal and corporate brand, making sure that they're aligned. It really just builds confidence.
Perfect, thank you. Nate, you want to give us some great insight? Last one.
Sure. I think, you know, I think the key in this sort of virtual first environment, and I think we've all sort of touched on today, is really taking a full inventory of sort of your marketing materials, your outreach documents, whether that's, you know, white pages that you might have, capabilities briefs, slide decks, whatever it happens to be. Even your sort of employees' LinkedIn profiles, like really taking a full sort of look at all of those and making sure that they really tell that cohesive, compelling story about who you are, what you bring, and sort of what you can do for government.
Okay, great. And then last but not least, Meg, if you wouldn't mind putting up the slide with contact information, just so people have it in case they have any last minute questions. We are going to do our best to answer any of the questions that came through the chat that we may not have addressed on the webinar. For everybody else, we have less than 30 seconds. Quick excitement for us here at GovMates. As you guys know, we normally do our institutes in person. We do our matchmaking in person, but we too have pivoted, as you can tell. So institutes are now online and virtual. We have heard from you guys, and we know that one of the biggest priorities for you is getting in front of new customers and learning about new government agencies, learning new people, if you will, which kind of goes to all of us. So we are expecting to have a slew, hopefully, of GovMates Institutes this fall that include bringing in more and more government people so that they can kind of give us perspective on the best way to get in touch with them, the best, what their organization is buying, all the things that we know that you guys want to hear about. So it kind of touches on that. Also excited to give you a little preview that our matchmaking is now virtual. So hopefully we will be providing you guys with a lot more opportunities to get in front of buyers, in front of large, whether that be the large system integrators, whether that be mid-tiers or government agencies themselves. And so we too have pivoted just like everybody else. Thank you everyone for your time today. We know a whole hour is a lot. Hopefully you didn't multitask too much, and congrats to our winners. You will be receiving a survey that I swear takes less than 2 minutes unless you were extremely verbose. And with the survey, if you complete it, you will get a 1-page, here's the key, 1-page, and it's a big page of a lot of information, infographic, a lot, Nate, thank you. Of all the takeaways and a couple more. So a couple hidden Easter eggs in there if you will give us the luxury of giving us your comments and feedback. We are always welcome, always looking to change and up our game every time. So thank you all to our panelists, Alex, Nate, Kim, Meg. Thank you everyone. Thanks for participating. And 2:31. Bye guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.